Do these sounds seem like something you would associate with Christianity and sobriety? You may be surprised to find out these two objects are directly related. While it might not seem that the sounds of war and Christianity are directly related, an understanding of the Prohibition movement and both the war on drugs and how their unintended consequences have led them to becoming mainly unpopular could very well be an interesting subject to talk about today. For something that 77% of Americans see as a failure and a law that got overturned due to the popular opinion of the American people, you may be interested as to why regulations on strict regulations, stringent regulations on drugs and alcohol continue. What if I told you that these topics do not have to do as much with the illicit substances, which are banned by them, but more about the enforcement of them? Like many college students, I've been interested in researching about controlled substances so that I can be informed with and in I'm given the chance to use those substances. Now, I've been very interested in researching about both prohibition and the war on drugs and the legalization of both products. Many Americans have come to form an unfavorable opinion on both the war on drugs and prohibition because it gave rise to three things: a large underground market, legal loopholes which were used in tandem, but furthermore, a system of unfair discrimination and legal enforcement which targeted certain communities and led to many Americans not having a favorable opinion of the subject. A large underground market. So we all know of gangsters like Al Capone and drug traffickers like Pablo Escobar and El Chapo. And these people both used the illegal industries of narcotics and alcohol to make their millions. One drawback of these industries, and that the government not regulating these, is that the quality of the product is largely unregulated and unknown. So it can be cut with another product or the alcohol. A lot of people in the Great Depression, for example, or before the Great Depression, when alcohol was illegal, they would drink any product with alcohol in it simply to escape their troubles. And the government ended up poisoning products with alcohol in them so people wouldn't drink them, yet people continued to drink them. Thus, emerged several legal loopholes to allow people to continue to do drugs or a certain amount of people to do drugs and alcohol whilst it being legal. So, first of all, there is medical versions, or you can get a prescription in both prohibition for alcohol and now for things like opioids, heroin, and marijuana to certain extents, and historically as well. This has led to unsavory doctors and places in terms such as pill mills, which are hospitals which solely exist to give people opioid prescriptions. Places like Walgreens, however, have become extremely profitable. During the Prohibition, Walgreens went from 35 stores to 535 stores. And because this system of law was not applied equally to all people, many Americans came to believe that both were racist and they discriminated against large communities of people in the United States. So one quote, John Ehrlichman, a member of the Nixon administration, was quoted as saying that a lot of people use as evidence for the chaos, is that we knew we couldn't make it illegal to be against either the war or being black, but by getting the public to associate hippies with marijuana and the blacks with heroin, then we could criminalize both heavily. We could disrupt those communities. Did we know we were lying about drugs? Of course we did. Now, that is direct evidence that they believe that they could discriminate against those communities by associating those activities with them. So, furthermore, that contributes to a sense of forbidden fruit and misunderstanding of who can have the product, accompanied with a government hypocrisy. So the government allowed for FARC, Contra Group, in South America to bring drugs to the United States to fund their mission to overthrow communism in the United States or in South Latin America. Additionally, for Prohibition, President Woodrow Wilson had a private alcohol stash and similar things such as the Red Solo Cup, and he moved it with the signing of the Volstead Act. When we think about banning substances, we should think about the creation of a legal market and legal loopholes which were made, and they act in tandem and oftentimes are exploited. And the enforcement of such policies is often discriminatory and not equally enforced. I would challenge each and every one of you to do more research and prohibition on the war on drugs. The respective wikis for each are great resources to start off with. It is entirely possible to have a world where drugs and alcohol aren't one of the primary problems. It is up to us, though, to make that thought happen. Just imagine a world where the consequences in drugs and alcohol no longer exist.